So, hello everybody, I'm Alan Sitomer, and this is Alan Pantanini. So I guess we're kind of going to do the Alan and Alan show right here. Alan, why don't you introduce yourself and explain sort of why you're here at Boost today, what your role is, and so forth.
Sure. As Alan said, my name is Alan Pantanini. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning Programs for the Pomona Unified School District. We live and breathe after school in Pomona Unified. We have we support 27 schools, about an average of 4,500 students daily in the after school world, from TK through 8th grade, and we're expanding it. We're looking at ways to expand into high school, and that's where esports is really important to us in our high schools. We have each of our comprehensive high schools has a designated esports program with an outfitted esports room where we're doing Rocket League and having competitions. We actually just had a high school team from Diamond Ranch High School just competed at the University of Berkeley, or Cal Berkeley's esports national championships or something, and took I believe second place. Which was pretty exciting for our school district. Where I come into this is, since we have it actively going in our high schools, how do we bring it down into the K-8s or K through 8 programming? And so I partnered with Mastery Coding here and Alan, and we're looking to expand and develop our program.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So I'm Alan Sitomer. The way I got here, I come out of the classroom. I was California's Teacher of the Year a few years ago at a Linwood High School. If Linwood's in the house right here. And it's all about meeting kids where they are. So the great Einsteinian secret of modern education is if you win the heart, the mind will follow right there. And my belief is today's learners are absolutely crazy about video games, right? I mean, that's just this generation loves gaming. And how do you use, in that Joseph Campbell follow your passion, the energy around games to illuminate that there are orbital career opportunities available? Because all these games are really, in one way, just gigantic STEM projects. They're made with code, they're published through media channels, they're using artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, played on hardware. So that opportunity to meet kids where they are and expand our learning objectives to create standards-based, project-based learning curriculum. That's kind of sort of the high wire dance we're here to sort of talk about today. And so, Alan, let me start with you. I think that it's an objective for all of us to get kids ready for like the next stage of life. And what middle schooler is really thinking about that? So let me start with the question, what does kind of career and workforce readiness mean to you as the leader of one of California's biggest expanded learning programs?
Yeah, when you're looking at trying to expand the minds of, inner city urban students, you really have to, I pride myself on bringing as many outside experiences to our students. A lot of them don't know much about the world outside of Pomona. We are the furthest east district in LA County. And and they stay within LA County. They know about the fair. Anybody go to the LA Fair? I mean, yeah, the fair's in Pomona. That's about that's about it. And some of our students get out, but it's really important for us and for our department to expose our students and expand their opportunities and provide a world that's much larger than what they know. And that's through esports and in something that they're interested in, is letting them know. When, like I shared earlier, our Diamond Ranch team going out to Berkeley, that was the first time a lot of our students have been outside of Pomona. And to travel to, unfortunately, they did lose to Downey, but They had a great time. They came back, and the more experience and the experiences that we can provide our students, teaching them about all the technical aspects, because it's just not about gaming. It's about exposing them to how to build, how to integrate, how to communicate, how to explore, how to network. It's just an amazing opportunity to be able to be in this position.
That's great right there. So one of the reasons that we've partnered together is to bring those opportunities to students. Mm-hmm. How do you see academic esports as opposed to simply gaming for the sake of gaming? And there's nothing wrong with that right there. Okay, there's like having fun, good stuff. But there's a lot of meat on the bone. How do academic esports align with your district's overall goals for student success?
Yeah. So one of our fears from our board and a lot of our staff and a lot of our parents is the balance between screen time versus academic time. And we worked really hard on educating our communities and our parents and our staffs and our board members that it's not just about screen time. They're building relationships. They're working on their confidence. They're doing so many things through the platform of esports that exposes students that might not have taken that risk, that aren't the athletes, that aren't the football players, they're not the baseball players. They don't have a community, but we've been able to embrace esports and provide a community for somebody who might be a little more introverted and not so extroverted, and give them that platform to build their confidence, to work in teams collaboratively, to learn those life skills and those business skills. That's not the traditional academics. I mean, of course, when you're looking at the traditional academics, there are some gross in mathematics and things like that, because it's, you're looking at simple coding and things like that. But when you really look at attendance and participation, you really see an impact in students' attendance because they want to be part of something. And addressing the social, emotional, and well-being of a student is just as important as the academic aspects, and esports provides that platform.
Yeah, so you tapped into a lot of different areas right here. So one of the things that I think that the United States Academic Esports League is very big on is a research-based approach to pedagogy right there. So we talk about the research base, and we have a white paper on the benefits of academic esports that is widely available to anybody who would seek to, use it to. There's misperceptions, about gaming is bad for you, or the promotes antisocial behavior. Like, so many of those things have been disproven. They're tropes, if you would, right there. But the idea of using gaming to illuminate cross-disciplinary opportunities. Now, this right here is why Alan is kind of with us, because he sees that kids are not just gaming to game. Mm-hmm. You're using gaming to open up avenues, right? Like, just like geographically, you're breaking borders by getting kids to go to Berkeley to compete and things like that. But also, a lot of students from urban areas have boundaries that are artificial based on what they believe they can be in the world. How does esports relate to those kind of cross-disciplinary illuminations, if you would?
Well, I think, Alan, when you're really looking at technology and the access that students have to technology, you really have to tie it back to preparing them for it. When you're looking at a middle school that knows how to use their PlayStation and get online and with total strangers, and they're engaging in competitions, and somebody on the other end might be yelling at them or saying something that they shouldn't be, or they might be engaged in some type of behavior. Your platform and the partnership that we have, you have embedded lessons that we have our students use and go through and teach about, online etiquette, teach a lot about how to, collaborate professionally, how to work as a team, and I think that's where you really have to hit first, is laying that strong foundation. Everybody can pick up a game and play it and do what they need to do at home. But when you're in a competitive environment, just like any sports, when I played football, we played football and we taught sportsmanship. Of course, there was some trash talking here or there, but that's just that competitive edge. But in the end, you're walking out, you're hugging each other, you're giving high fives. And that's if you're looking at esports as a true sport, you got to be able to teach students how to have that team mentality, how to work with good sportsmanship, how to collaborate as a team. Members of your esports team, they take on leadership roles. How do they have the skills, or how do you develop those skills for them to be on those leadership roles, and then to delegate responsibilities and the communication. There's so much that you can go into when you're really laying down that academic foundation for them.
So that's great right there, because let's dive a little deeper, right? We're talking about skills, and there's really two types of skills, I think, that academic esports, at least that we try to focus on at the USAEL, right? There are transferable skills, and then there's concrete competency technical skills. So let's start. You just talked about the leadership, the communication, the competitive banter versus toxicity and things like that. Can you make it real for me? Can you share an example of maybe a real kid that demonstrated skills, or maybe didn't demonstrate, and you course corrected, and other students because do they really need help playing Fortnite at 2:00 in the morning and talking trash? No, right? How do you rotate that? And do you have an exact example of maybe a student you or your schools have worked with?
I use my own son as an example. No, but really, when you want them to self-discover. You want to lead the work, but nobody's gonna. We know we can't force kids to do the right thing. Everybody's going to make their mistakes and have to learn from them. But what we could do is we prepare the students for when those situations happen. So, and when they're in that situation and they've said something or might have to stop and reflect on their actions because now somebody's turned it on them. And so I think it's more about exposing them and letting them go. Because you can't tell them, oh, this is what you have to do. Because if they're in their room or if they're on a part of a team, that might not always happen. They might do it while the teacher walks in. You're all educators. When your principal walks into your room, what do? You put on the show. You stand up straight. You walk around the classroom. You're doing what you're supposed to do. That's the reality. That's the same thing when, with my kids and in the classrooms, when the kids are doing on their computers, playing esports and doing the games, playing Rocket League or whatever it might be, they're doing it themselves. They're obviously different at home than they would be in the classroom and in the program. And so you just want to be able to expose them and teach them, hey, be aware. People are watching. People are listening. People are doing things, you never know who you might come across. And so laying that foundation, Alan, is I think what we can do, and then they make their choices.
That's great right there. So there's a lot of moving parts to starting a program that actually has efficacy in a certain way. So my personal belief is that we are at a wildly unique time in the world of esports and video games, because I make this analogy often. I think once upon a time, somebody went to their principal and said, we should build a basketball court on campus. And they did that way back when, decades ago, and we've been playing basketball ever since. And I believe it's not a matter of if your school is going to embrace esports and bring it on campus. It's just a matter of when. And when you step out and you lead the way, go visit the campus 20, 30, 40 years from now. I have a feeling the lab, the makerspace, whatever it's going to look like, the technology will change. But the idea is this going to be the hub that attracts students? Absolutely right here. So you're a thought leader in the space. There are a lot of folks that are maybe just considering doing it for the first time. What advice would you give to somebody who's like, I know the kids are going to be into it, but I'm not really sure, like, how to kickstart? Like, what do you look for in an academic esports program?
First and foremost, all of our districts have security measures, to protect students' data and things like that. To really have the in-depth conversations, you have to have all the players in the same room. You have to have your IT department, your directors of your IT department. You got to make sure that whatever platforms you're seeking at using, can be supported through your networks and to provide the students the best experience. And then you also have to talk to your leadership, superintendents, your deputy superintendents, even your board members, because there are some games out there that the kids might play them on their own, but is it really an environment that we want to promote?
Yeah, you're not bringing every game published into it's like school, right? You got
exactly.
Protocols and rationale.
Yeah, so starting at doing those, having those initial conversations and people at the table, and then map it out. We started in high school because we wanted to make sure that it was an area that the kids were showing the most interest. CIF was coming in, creating leagues, doing those things. So we wanted to promote there. Now we're looking at how do we bring it down, looking at the middle school. And each district's going to be different. But the other thing is do your teachers have the capacity? Of course, Alan, teacher of the year, he had the experience, and now he's doing, well outside of the classroom, but not all teachers do have those skill sets. And how do you provide that support to the teachers that might be interested, and how do you develop them as well? So it's a pretty in-depth process, just like every educational shift and change is. I mean, look at where we were prior to COVID. How many of us have computer labs still existing on our campuses? We don't have computer labs anymore. Every student has a Chromebook or a desktop or something in their hands that they take with them everywhere they go. So we've evolved as a system, and we continue to evolve. And the next step is, if this is something that you're going to challenge your district with, it's out there. It's ready to move. You just have to make those right choices.
That's great. So let's see. We've got a couple of different channels here we're talking about. There's actually procuring the hardware.
Yeah.
There's the security, the data protection, the IT aspect of it. There's choosing the games right there. There's the professional development, because some of the facilitators, they're born gamers, and this is the favorite thing in the world to lead, and other people are kind of being voluntold that, hey, you're in charge of the Rocket League team. That kind of sort of works out that way. Things like that. How is it that you go about, because I've obviously been there to Pomona, you get a lot of buy-in, but not everybody is going to maybe find it as easy to do so. You got any tips or tricks, or how do you win over skeptics about the benefits of bringing an academic esports program to your campus?
Well, if you were in Michael Funk's session yesterday, you can't be a skeptic. So you have to make sure that you are doing everything you can, because you believe in it, and you believe in the process, and you believe in the work that you're doing. Building relationships, leading with leading for a purpose. It starts there. It's having those conversations with your leadership that, hey, dropping that pin. Everybody comes at leadership with, great idea. But when you get that great idea and you throw it all out at the table, chances are that first reaction is going to push it away, because they don't want another thing on their plate. But if you drop it a little bit here, and then you show some evidence, and you drop it again a little bit there, and you show some evidence, and you're patient in the process. That's usually how I get buy-in with the programs. We run, like I said, we're in 27 schools in our district. We run we have 17 different partnerships with expanded learning providers. We run on a 6-week rotation. I'd just like to say everything we've put in front of our board with a purpose has been approved. And we're providing our students opportunities that they've never seen, never had. And we're excited about that work, but it was a process. It's about really having that clear vision and that clear purpose and being patient.
That's excellent. So one of the things that we're seeing is that using an academic esports program can help break the cycle of intergenerational poverty. Mm-hmm. Literally, you're teaching meaningful skills in a world being changed by technology. And like the USAL, we're now offering artificial intelligence. All these games are using AI and AI literacy and all that. So these big ideas that are just changing education writ large. But how do you ensure that programs are providing equitable access, particularly to underrepresented populations?
Mm-hmm. So, as part of expanded learnings, you're specific focused on your unduplicated students. So when you're really purposeful about what students are participating, we offer programs based off of our student surveys. What are you interested in? And then we go out and seek. So having that student voice and that student buy-in, which is all part of expanded learning, we want them to tell us what to do. We give the students the opportunity to have voice in the games that they've played. And to be honest with you, when we first started this process with our high schools, our board was like, no, you can't, we're not playing this, we're not playing that, we're not doing this. It was really, really restricted. They were going to let them play Mario Kart. That was pretty much it. And it was our students and our student voices that they went and did full-on presentations. I mean, they worked Canva better than I could in their proposals. They've done so. They are the advocates for the work that they get to participate in, and they were able to convince our board to bring in Rocket League, to bring in other games that did have some violence in it, but was more on the fantasy end instead of the realistic end, and so. Inspiring them to have that voice is definitely what initiated some of the changes.
That's great. So I want to push that forward a little bit, because having it become a student-centered organization right there, that's really where the win is. In an ideal world, the kids are coaching one another. The kids are self-policing their behavior. The kids are taking care of the hardware and not bringing drinks into the room and spilling it and treat it like, dude, this is our stuff right there. And if you go see like flourishing programs, you see those really wonderful character-based skills right there. So how is it that, where's that line of developing and encouraging kids, and then is there some sort of shining, burning bush moment where you see, man, these kids are getting it right there?
Well, I think when the kids see that you're interested and you're investing in them, when the high schools really were pushing this forward, initially, and when the district came in and supported with outfitting the entire, transforming a classroom, a learning space into an esports room, where, I have to say, it's pretty impressive to see. And then when the students see that, hey, our voice is being heard, we're getting to have these opportunities. You're exactly right, Alan. They start taking care of the equipment. They start taking care of the environment. They're holding each other accountable. They're, putting each other in check. Like, hey, don't do that. That's not cool, And that works out. I mean, I think just when they see that you're investing in them and you're believing in them and you're providing them the opportunity, that's what really flips the switch for some of them.
That's great. That's great. So obviously you're a person who's quite familiar with the landscape, and there's many different folks that you could have selected to work with your esports, and you chose us at the United States Academic Esports League. What kind of support or partnership stood out that made you sort of select us? And what's kind of a differentiating factor that you would encourage people new to this to look for?
Look for somebody who's really interested in what you want and what you feel is going to help with your program. But also, I have to be on the end of I got to learn from you guys as well. So I got to be open-minded. But there are some certain parameters, because a lot of people just want to sell you your product. Like, here, this is what we do. I mean, you walk through that vendor hall over there, everybody's approaching it. Let me scan you this. Let me send you this. That's not, in our positions, when we're building programs, that's not what we want. I don't want just another product, because then that product just sits in it's like a curriculum. You do a curriculum adoption, I bet you walk into some of your classrooms and a lot of that stuff's still in the cellophane. And it's just another product. Working with Mastery Coding and Alan and his team, they really take the time to listen. What is it that we can help you develop? And I think that's the first step, is if they're willing to listen and tailor and be flexible and tailor their program to our specific needs, just like we tailor our instruction to the students' individual needs. They need to be able to tailor, and that's what they do. They tailor their curriculum, their program. We've had discussions on how do we evolve, instruction of the classes, going from, PowerPoint presentation, or going from non-presentations to actually incorporating some of the presentation and increasing the interaction between the students and the platform, which is all part of learning and growing and building something unique.
That's great. Let's talk about funding. How do you pay for this stuff?
Expanded learning funds. Come on. Everybody's got them. It's how you use them. I mean, it's a great thing about expanded learning is if you have a clear vision, you have your expanded learning plan is clearly written with the objectives and the goals, and you have a department that's allowing, or you have a district that's allowing you to utilize the funds for what's it's intended and not paying for things that they shouldn't be paying for, then the money's unrestricted. Every session Michael talks about, have fun. And this is having fun. This money is to have fun, to create experiences for students that they don't have. And so I'm using it. It's not my money. We do contribute to it with taxes, but it's not my money to hold back. So if I can spend it and I get approval for it, and it's helping kids, and it's what's best for them in the environment that we're at, I say spend it.
That's great, and you're so generous of spirit, so thank you very much for spending some time with us. I think I want to turn it over to the audience, maybe, if I can, to see if there's any questions for Alan or myself about these kind of programs right here. Does anybody sort of have something they'd like to toss into the ring right here?
I can speak up.
Okay.
What esports games do you have at your sites, and how were those games chosen?
So the question is, what esports games do you have at your site, and how were the games selected?
Well, as I said earlier, I mean, we have Rocket League, What's the other one?
Smash.
Smash. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a gamer, so I just pretend that I know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to those games, but most of them were all student selected. We did a student survey. The students identified the games that they wanted. Then our IT, our ed tech department then researched. They knew exactly what they were. But then when they presented the proposal to the board was like, after their descriptions, no, and then again, it's just encouraging that student voice and letting them choose. You want to be high interest. We've had a conversation at one of our last meeting about how do we identify games that are going to attract female players. And one of the games that was one of our ed tech staff, he did a lot of research and then did the student survey with all the female students in high school, and it was I can't remember the name of it, but it was kind of a reality type game that they were interested in. It wasn't as much of an interactive game, but it was more of kind of like them collaborate, more of a collaboration type of platform. And that was just because that's what they were interested in. So seeking their voice is super important.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different questions underneath the question that you just asked right there. So firstly, we can help. We work with districts all over the country. So we work at elementary, middle, and high school. So in elementary, Minecraft is the most popular game of all time right there. I mean, my daughter she loves Minecraft, right? That type of thing. So you can use Minecraft quite well, and we've got tons of great learning curriculum, whether it's the science of reading or tying to history. The cross-disciplinary connections right there are widely available. Then moving up, Mario Kart, like you get Switches, and you got Mario Kart, you got Super Smash right there, and Rocket League, quite popular middle. But right now, the middle school game, and we're coming front and center with this next year, Rivals. Anybody got students playing Marvel Rivals right now? Yeah. Like Rivals is the thing. So
how many of you in the audience are playing Marvel Rivals right now?
Players right
any
there?
Rivals players? There you go.
So we're building out curriculum that not only will the students be able to compete in tournaments for Rivals, but if you watch these students play on a team, like a Rivals competition, you will see so many of the skills that Alan was mentioning right there. The communication with one another, right? Being concise, precise, and efficient with your language right there, because you've got meaningful objectives and our accountability, is preeminent right there, and it ratchets up so well right there. It's phenomenal to see, like, if the California Department of Education ran as efficiently as a high school Marvel Rivals team, right? Like, because otherwise you're going to get the floor mopped with you. Like, that's how it's got to go right there. And then you sort of get to see, there's Fortnite, there's Valorant, but those are games that are a little bit like, some school districts are like, I'm not touching that stuff with a 10-foot pole. And other school districts are like, we're cool with it. So there's no one size fits all. Our role is to be game agnostic in supporting you right there. And that comes with professional development, PD, right? So we offer a toolkit for coaches, how to start a team, run a team, form a team, manage a team, compete in a tournament, and things like that right there to alleviate the lift off of students. Now, getting into how do you attract diverse audiences was another part of the question. An esports team is not exclusively composed of players. There are managers, there are coaches, there is the opportunity for fan art, for social media, right there. There's a whole host of operations right there if you're gonna host a district tournament. There are so many different auxiliary roles students can be a part of an esports team. If you look at a football team or a baseball team, there's a lot of people playing a role that aren't on the pitcher's mound or aren't playing tailback for the team that have a very vital role to a football team fielding a team right there. The same is true of esports, but what we love about it is the technology right there. So we've got broadcasting curriculum for kids to learn how to be shoutcasters and things like that. Then there's just the IT hookups. And I was out at that Rivals tournament, and one of the kids like gave me a 5-minute lecture on chord management right there, because the spaghetti chords and things like that, when you see all the computers, and this kid was like, the peas don't touch the mashed potatoes, right? And the chords and the this and the that, and you could just see that, I don't know what he's doing in his geometry class or anything like that, but this kid was wide awake, paying attention and learning professional AV skills right there. So when you think about an esports team on campus, you have to realize there are so many orbital opportunities for kids to get involved that don't necessitate them actually having to play right there.
Yeah. And actually, having those, again, I just go right back to having their voice, listening to our kids, giving them, the opportunity. Alan being patient with a 5-minute lecture on how to wind chords. Those are the things that our kids need. They need our support in just trusting in them and believing in them. And then that's that small little switch that you might have just changed somebody's direction.
Yeah, and back to the research also, which you and I have discussed, all the research shows that a kid who is not involved in any extracurricular activity, whether it's photography or it's dance or it's, band, whatever it is, any kid who has no touch point to an extracurricular is at the highest likelihood of flunking out or dropping out right there. And esports attracts so many of the kids that don't find a home in other places. And I see so many heads nodding right here because you've seen it happen over and over again. And suddenly you get these reclusive students or they're introverts, right? Suddenly they blossom. And the other aspect that you might not be aware of if you haven't actually hosted a team is that you will get disparate groups of students coming together. Like you'll see the valedictorian or the star athlete play side by side against maybe a student on the spectrum or special education or whatever, and have absolutely no advantage whatsoever. Like they could absolutely get destroyed by the kid. And you know what they say? Good game, bro. Right? Like game respects game. So there's a meritocracy to esports that is really kind of beautiful to bring to your campus. Yeah. Right. One other thing right there, like these professional esports athletes right here, they're highly aware of hydration, sleep habits, eye strain, things like that right there. Our curriculum brings that to your students right there to make them aware of taking care of your mental health, your physical health, right? Things like that. So this is, and they're playing for millions of dollars too at the elite level right now. So how about one more question, because we're kind of running low on time. Anybody else have one more thought?
For your high school program, minimum GPA, any academic requirements to play on the team?
Excellent question. So we can help empower you to set GPA minimums like some sports, high school basketball. If you don't keep a certain average, you're not on the team. We don't mandate it because a lot of at-risk students, this is the reason they will come to school, right? So it's not for us as an organization to decide whether we're hard and fast about it. It might push them over the edge right there, because one of the things that I deeply believe in as an educator, there are no D's. You will either fail outright or you will earn a C. And that's kind of my personal approach right there. Like you got to choose a side, because what's the difference between a C and an F if you're a D student? Elbow grease, willpower, determination. Right there. It's not, there's nothing else getting in your way. So that's kind of an approach right there that, but some schools, if you don't keep a 2.0, you're gone.
And just like in other things. So if you have if you're investing into a program, then you also need to invest in your students. You need to, just as you would, if your quarterback was flunking and, you know, you're at a state championship on the line, what are you going to do? You're going to provide that quarterback with tutoring. You're going to make that quarterback do what you need to do. You're going to get him the support and the resources that he needs. You need to be mindful of that for all students, and you need to provide all students those opportunities, but then also encourage them. Hey, this is something they're interested in. Counseling with them, talking to them, giving them that connection that they need to allow them to develop. And then you'll see the turnaround. I mean, kids don't wake up in the morning wanting to fail. You know, they come to school to learn. We are the adults. We are the situation. We are the one, you know, part of the reasons that kids are failing. And we need to reflect on ourselves. We need to reflect on the actions that we're doing and how are we contributing to that student's failure. And we need to be the ones to make that change. We need to be the ones that are advocating and there to support all students. So
I love that. I love that.
we fail students. Students don't fail. We failed students.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you once again right here. And then if you have any interest to learn more about what we're doing, the program that we've brought to Pomona, we're in, I think we're on the 400 aisle. We've got a booth that says "Turn Your Gamers into Makers," and we're happy to set anybody up with a demo account, pilot it, ask some questions. And other than that, thank you so much for joining us today.
And if you have any questions regarding expanded learning, I'm Director of Expanded Learning, Pomona Unified School District. You can find me.
Great.
Awesome.
I